Brilliant. Danny Flexen for Seconds Out. Delighted to once again be joined by Lou DiBella for DiBella's Digest. And Lou, as always, I have to ask you first, how's your week been?
Not a good week, but I'm not going to get into detail. But, sometimes you have a really shitty week. I've had personally a very shitty week. But that being said, I'm breathing, I'm healthy, and my family is. And, you got to have perspective. But honestly, Danny, my week's been shit.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, of course. Someone else whose week hasn't been optimal is Oscar De La Hoya, of course. Bit of a clumsy segue, but I'm sure you'll forgive me for it.
No problem.
Cheers. He has formally split now with Canelo Alvarez. Alvarez is a free agent and is exploring options potentially for a fight in December. Given the lawsuits and the acrimony that we've seen recently, how surprised, if at all, were you by the split?
I was completely not surprised, but I was a little bit surprised that it was just done in the form of a mutual release. Hey, everybody's free and let's move on with our lives. That was somewhat surprising. That was shocking to a lot of other people. Wasn't shocking to me. Look, I mean, it was a relationship that was fractured for a long time. And then there were other parties involved, like DAZN. Then there were all sorts of stuff like potential lawsuits and litigations. And we don't know the whole story. We don't know exact contractual relationship. But obviously, in order to give up your biggest star and the guy that's your company's sort of banner, fighter, you have to feel that there are reasons why it makes sense for you also. And, obviously De La Hoya and Golden Boy felt that cutting everything cleanly was preferable to fighting it out. And that, both sides must have felt they were getting something out of it, even if it was relief of liability or whatever, in order to walk away. So, people, when you get to big time litigation situations like they were in, it's usually mutual rationality of some kind that settles something. So, I don't think it's a good thing for Golden Boy, but if they can hold on to their other existing talent, and particularly if they can hold on to their DAZN deal, they should be okay.
How disappointed must DAZN be, though? Because surely Canelo was one of the main driving forces behind the Golden Boy deal.
I don't know. Maybe, first of all, never say never. So it's unclear that DAZN couldn't do business with them in the future. Also, clearly, because, Canelo's a superstar in boxing, but his real base is in North America, Mexico, United States. And those areas are certainly being de-emphasized by DAZN. I don't know that Canelo's as important there as he would have been 2 years ago or 3 years ago or a year ago.
You talked about Golden Boy kind of grooming and developing their other fighters. Who are the kind of main runners and riders for Golden Boy who can help fill that Canelo void collectively?
I mean, it's Ryan Garcia and Virgil Ortiz are at the top of the list. They have Jojo Diaz, who has a belt, who's supposed to fight his rematch with Tevin Farmer, though Eddie and Jojo seem to be trying to escape their obligations. And I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't wind up in court. But they have talent, like Golden Boy. They have talent. They have talent at the top, and certainly there's a lot of upside. And the guys I'm going to point to, at that highest level. I guess also, you have at the highest level in my mind, Ryan Garcia, Virgil Ortiz. Then you have JoJo and Munguia. But they have talent.
I guess the key thing.
And I don't want to leave out my girlfriend Sean Cruz, who female champion. They should get her in the ring.
Things that fans are going to want to know the most. Does this have any impact on how easy it is to make the big fights for Canelo? Is it more likely, less, or the same as before?
Probably more likely. I don't think Canelo wants to fight in significant fights. I think that if he's going to operate sort of as a free agent, like where maybe he does his first fight over with PBC, if it makes sense, maybe his next fight's at DAZN, maybe his first fight's at DAZN. I don't expect him necessarily I don't expect him in this marketplace to do some exclusive deal someplace right now. It would greatly surprise me, and I don't think it'd be the right move. I think if he's big enough that if he sort of floated from opportunity to opportunity with a willingness to work on different platforms, I think that's going to maximize his opportunity to make the most money and get the biggest fights.
Initially, after the split, it was reported that Canelo was exploring a fight with Caleb Plant at 168 pounds. But apparently they felt it wasn't long enough to build it up sufficiently as a pay-per-view attraction. And now it seems the front runner to face Canelo in December is Callum Smith on DAZN.
Well, yeah, but it has to be because he can't fight a pay-per-view in December, period. It's not enough time, period. So I don't, unless Fox was going to ante up huge money to put Canelo on Fox, which, by the way, would have been a really interesting play. But in the absence of that, where else is he going to go? ESPN's not going to put up enough to put Canelo on ESPN or ESPN Plus. You can't do a pay-per-view in a month. So maybe he's going to have a rapprochement with, DAZN and go back there and take a fight in December. Maybe it's also maybe it's also possible that he's not going to fight in December at all. I guess we'll find out.
If it does end up being Callum Smith, do you like that fight?
I don't hate it. I mean, if it was a pay-per-view, would I pay for it? No. Would I watch it on DAZN? Yes. Would I watch it on Fox or another Showtime or another outlet? Yes. But do I think Callum Smith, I didn't think Callum, look, I think Callum Smith is a good fighter, right? And he has length and height. I have no disrespect for him. So, don't take this disrespectfully, okay? If he beat John Ryder, it was by a hair, and I didn't think he did, okay? John Ryder can't compete with Canelo, and neither can Callum Smith, in my view. I think that maybe the length and stuff will take him a little round or two of adjustment. But you know what? He was at a disadvantage on length with Kovalev, and that really didn't make much difference. I don't hate the fight. There's nothing wrong with the fight, but I think, there's nothing wrong with the fight, and I think it's an attractive fight for a worldwide app if DAZN in reality, is going to put it on their service. So I don't think from a DAZN standpoint, particularly you have to think if DAZN is going to wind up televising it, like the rumors, they're paying a lot less than they would have paid under the old Canelo deal. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But there's not, it's not like, it doesn't get maybe this is the problem too. My last exposure to Callum, has he fought since the Ryder fight, Callum?
No.
Okay. Was the Ryder fight that I thought he lost. And I expressed it that night in real time while I thought he was losing. And I have respect for Ryder. I have respect for Callum. I think it was a good fight. I thought he lost, but it was a close fight. But I don't think either one of those guys is beating Canelo. So is it to me like a Crawford Spence would be or something like that? No. But there are, in fairness to Canelo, he's sort of the big star, the big, the 800-pound gorilla, if you will, the king of the hill economically, and in terms of name recognition or whatever. I might think that Dimitri Bivol is a more interesting fight, but who gives a shit about Dimitri Bivol? Callum Smith also, they're looking to sell that DAZN app throughout the UK.
Sure.
and throughout Europe, and throughout the UK and Europe, I would think Callum Smith means more than a lot of other people might. So I understand, I understand the selection. And by the way, Callum Smith's no less, I don't give Callum Smith any less chance than I would give a Caleb Plant. I'd watch both fights, but sorry, dropped the phone.
No.
Would I change my schedule and spend $80? I'm not sure. Because again, I think I know the result of the fight. But there's nothing wrong with those fights. I think Caleb Plant is a good fighter and could make a competitive fight. I've seen Callum Smith on nights much better than John Ryder, where maybe you could see him, putting up a better effort with Canelo. But I don't, nothing wrong with the fight, but doesn't really make my day.
Now, I got a fair amount of criticism after last week's DiBella's Digest for not asking you about the Deontay Wilder situation. And even looking back on it, I'm not quite sure why I didn't bring it up. I think it just didn't enter my head at the time.
I mean, maybe because the shit he said was so preposterous and the whole thing was so embarrassing that you saved me, the heartache of having to talk about it. Maybe that was it.
For a week. Yeah.
I mean, but look, man, I'm not. I don't hate Deontay. We had a run together, and it ended, and I did the best I could for him, and I still believe I did the right things. I'm not going to comment on him or his closest advisors or managers or anything. I'm not going to do that. But like, I don't know, man. He's not usually the kind of guy that makes excuses like that, and I just think that it's one thing. Look, you know what? He's allowed to not want to work with. I love Mark Breland. He's an old friend of mine. I'll always love Mark Breland. Okay, but he's entitled not to work with Mark Breland if he doesn't want to any longer. Okay, but saying Mark Breland, a disloyal trainer, suggesting that he may have spiked or drugged, his water, that's completely unacceptable. And first of all, even calling him disloyal is unacceptable, because I think someone trying to stop their charge or their fighter from being permanently damaged in the face of what might be easier to do, that's loyalty. That's not disloyalty. So I take umbrage with that. But in boxing, there is no fucking loyalty, and it's a scumbag business dominated by scumbag people. But that being said, saying that someone would drug your water or spike your water, a guy like a Mark Breland, it really disappointed me. And you know what, man? You make your own reputation. Like, it's not for me to judge Deontay, right? But people are watching, and people are going to reach their own conclusions. And then you have to face the consequences of your own words or lack of graciousness or myopic, refusal to really see things as they were. But ultimately, your words are going to be held against you somehow, one way or the other. And down the line, it'll be interesting to see if he's still happy he went down this road.
Do you think his motivation is just clamoring for an excuse for the defeat, or do you think there's been people whispering in his ear? It just seems very strange that he'd settle on that.
Oh, I think there have absolutely been people whispering in his ear, 100%. I think there've also been people that don't care enough or have the balls to sit down. If he really was the source of it, I think that he lacks people that would really sit down with him and talk through some stuff honestly and be willing to disagree with him. But I don't know. I also think that we're in the hurt business, and guys get hit in the head, and guys get concussed, and guys have bad nights that have physical ramifications for months, if not years, if not the rest of your life. So I can't pretend to know everything going on in the mind of Deontay or any other boxer, but I'll just say that it was unsettling to me, and it's not for me to condemn anybody or call them names or anything like that. But in a situation like this, I think people are paying attention to what he says, and it's getting a lot. I think that I don't know. I don't know. That's about it. That's all I can pretty much say on it. I was sort of happy. I was happy, Danny, when you didn't ask me last week.
All right. Well, I won't bring it up again. We've done it now. We've sorted out all the trolls on YouTube. They'll be happy. So great stuff. Lou, I really appreciate your time. I hope you're in a sunnier mood next week. Not for the digest, just generally.
I appreciate that, my friend.
We want you to be happy.
Be well. Have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.
Brilliant. Cheers, Lou. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.